Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sam's Summaries. This episode is a deep dive discussion into Sam Fury's summary of the book Cold Reading by George Hutton. It has been created with the help of AI. You can read the original summary at samfury.com.
All right, so we're diving into cold reading today. And I got to say, when I first picked up this book by George Hutton called Cold Reading, I was picturing smoky rooms, crystal balls, that kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
But it turns out that it's a lot less about mystical powers and more about the psychology behind these really insightful conversations, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's peeking behind the curtain to understand how these mind-blowing interactions work.
Yeah.
You know, we tend to associate cold reading with fortune tellers and psychics.
Right.
But the truth is we all kind of engage in a form of cold reading every day, right?
Are you saying I have hidden psychic potential?
Not quite, but think about it. When you meet someone for the first time, you're constantly picking up on cues, making inferences, trying to understand them. That's essentially what cold reading is.
Okay.
Observing, interpreting, responding
Yeah.
in a way that creates a connection.
All right. I'm starting to see the connection to everyday life here.
Sure.
But what makes cold reading so effective? Is it just a bunch of clever tricks?
I mean, there's definitely skill involved, but it's more than just tricks.
Okay.
Hutton actually breaks down these core principles, and one of the most fascinating is the use of vague and specific language.
Oh, interesting.
It's a dance between broad statements anyone can relate to,
Right.
and then these laser-focused details that make it feel super personal.
Okay, so how do they get those specific details? Are they secretly stalking people on social media beforehand?
Well, that would certainly make things easier.
Right.
But true cold reading relies on observation and deduction.
Okay.
So let's say a cold reader observes someone with a worn-out leather briefcase, right?
Yeah.
They might say something like, I sense you're someone who values hard work and has a strong sense of responsibility.
So it's not about guessing their exact profession, but more about tapping into the qualities that the objects might represent.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. Cold readers often combine this observation with an understanding of universal desires and fears. We all crave love, success, a sense of purpose, right?
Absolutely.
Who doesn't want to feel like they're on the right path and destined for great things?
Right.
Cold readers tap into that by crafting their language to align with those desires.
Go ahead.
They might say something like, I sense you're on the verge of a major breakthrough, but there's a part of you that's holding you back.
It's like they're speaking directly to those hidden aspirations and anxieties that we all have.
Yeah.
But isn't there a risk that this could be used to manipulate people?
That's why understanding these techniques is so important.
Okay.
It's not about endorsing manipulation,
Right.
but rather empowering you to recognize when these techniques are being used,
Yeah.
for better or worse.
So it's like having a superpower, being able to see through the smoke and mirrors.
Exactly. You become a more discerning listener,
Yeah.
more attuned to the subtle ways language can really shape our perceptions.
It's pretty powerful.
But beyond the techniques themselves,
Okay.
what's fascinating to me is how cold reading taps into our innate desire to believe.
Oh, that's interesting. You mean our tendency to search for meaning even in the most random events?
Exactly. We want to believe there's a reason for things,
Right.
that our lives have a purpose.
Uh-huh.
Cold readers tap into this by creating a sense of cause and effect, even if that connection is completely made up.
So they're giving us a narrative that makes sense of our experiences, even if it's not entirely accurate.
Precisely. And because we crave that sense of meaning,
Yeah.
we're often willing to overlook the inconsistencies or even the outright fabrications.
Yeah, okay, that's a little mind-boggling, but also kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how this goes beyond just entertainment and delves into these deeper questions about human psychology and belief systems.
Absolutely. And that's what makes cold reading so fascinating. It's
Yeah.
a window into the power of suggestion, the way our minds seek patterns and crave meaning,
Yeah,
even when it's not explicitly there.
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
We were talking about how cold reading plays on our desire to believe, and I'm curious about this one technique called linguistic presuppositions.
Right.
Sounds like some kind of Jedi mind trick.
It does have an air of mystery to it.
Yeah.
So basically, linguistic presuppositions are ways of embedding assumptions within sentences,
Okay.
planting ideas without directly stating them.
Oh.
It's weaving subtle suggestions into the fabric of the conversation.
So it's not outright lying, but rather framing things in a way that leads the listener to a certain conclusion.
Exactly. For example, a cold reader might say something like, "It's impressive how you've learned to navigate difficult situations with such grace."
Okay.
Now, they haven't directly said that you faced difficult situations, but the way it's phrased kind of implies it, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
It's sneaking an idea into the back door.
exactly.
And because it's not a direct statement, it's harder to refute or even notice consciously.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fascinating how our minds tend to just accept these embedded assumptions without much scrutiny, especially when they're delivered with confidence and in a way that aligns with our existing beliefs.
Okay, so how does this connect to the idea of pacing and leading that we talked about before? It seems like they both kind of involve guiding the listener in a particular direction.
That's a great observation. They actually work hand in hand. Pacing sets the stage by establishing common ground with true observations,
Right.
making the listener more receptive to those leading statements that contain those subtle suggestions.
I'm starting to see how all these techniques fit together like pieces of a puzzle, creating this powerful framework for influencing perception.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's a little unnerving to realize how susceptible we are to these subtle manipulations.
Yeah, I understand that feeling. It's certainly eye-opening.
Yeah.
But remember, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
By understanding these techniques, we're less likely to be swayed by them. Unknowingly, we become more discerning listeners, able to critically evaluate the information that we're receiving.
That's a good point. It's like learning a new language,
Right.
the language of persuasion.
Exactly.
But once you understand it, you can both appreciate its beauty and protect yourself from its potential misuse.
Absolutely. And beyond that, understanding cold reading can also enhance our communication skills.
Okay.
After all, it's not all about manipulation.
Right.
It's also about creating a connection, building rapport, understanding how our words impact others.
So there's an ethical way to use these techniques, even if some people might consider them a bit sneaky.
Absolutely. It all comes down to intention. Ethical cold reading is about using these techniques to empower, encourage, and inspire. It's about helping someone see their own potential and navigate their challenges with greater awareness.
That makes sense. But how do you walk that fine line between genuine connection and manipulative influence? How do you know when you're crossing the line?
That's where self-awareness and empathy come in. Before using any of these techniques, ask yourself, what's my motivation here? Am I trying to genuinely connect with this person, or am I trying to get them to do something that benefits me?
So it's about checking in with your own intentions,
Exactly.
making sure you're operating from a place of integrity.
Exactly. And it's about being mindful of the other person's boundaries, respecting their autonomy. Cold reading should never feel coercive or manipulative.
Right.
It should feel like a collaborative exploration,
Yeah.
a shared journey of discovery.
That's a good distinction. It's like the difference between leading someone down a path and just illuminating the path ahead,
Yeah.
allowing them to choose their own direction.
Exactly. And remember, true connection is built on authenticity and trust. If you're using these techniques to manipulate or deceive, that trust will eventually erode.
This makes me think about this other idea from Hutton about sharpening your intuition.
Yeah.
It seems like cold reading involves more than just memorizing techniques. It's about developing a deeper understanding of human nature.
Absolutely. Cold reading at its core is about observation, empathy, and the ability to connect the dots. It's about paying attention to those subtle cues, both verbal and nonverbal, that reveal what's really going on beneath the surface.
So it's like becoming a detective of human behavior, learning to read between the lines and understand the unspoken language of emotions.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a skill that goes far beyond cold reading.
Yeah.
It can enhance your relationships, your career, and your understanding of the world around you.
That's an intriguing thought.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how this goes beyond just a set of techniques and delves into these deeper questions about perception communication and what it means to truly connect with another human being.
And that's what makes cold reading such a fascinating subject to explore.
Right.
It's a window into the complexities of human psychology and the subtle ways we influence and are influenced by each other.
We've been talking a lot about the techniques and the ethics of cold reading, and I'm realizing this is way more complex than I initially thought. It's like this whole hidden language of communication we're not even aware of.
Absolutely. And one of the most intriguing aspects Hutton explores is the power of nonverbal cues.
Oh, interesting.
We often focus on what people say,
Right.
but their body language, tone of voice, even micro expressions
Right.
can reveal so much more.
So it's not just about listening to the words, but also paying attention to the unspoken signals.
Exactly. A skilled cold reader is a human lie detector,
Whoa.
attuned to those subtle inconsistencies between what someone says and how they say it.
I've always been fascinated by those TV shows where they analyze body language to catch criminals.
Yeah,
It's amazing what you can learn from a slight shift in gaze or a nervous fidget.
right. And while we're not all trying to solve crimes,
Right.
being more attuned to those nonverbal cues can enhance our understanding of people in everyday life.
Okay, so beyond paying attention to nonverbal cues, what are some other practical ways we can apply these cold reading techniques to our own lives?
Well, one of the most valuable applications is in building rapport and creating connections.
Okay.
So imagine you're at a networking event and you want to strike up a conversation with someone who seems interesting.
Try.
Instead of bombarding them with questions, start by observing and making a genuine compliment. Notice something specific about them.
Okay, like what?
Their style, a book they're carrying, even their energy.
Okay, so then how do I tie that observation back to something deeper?
Right. Well, that's where those universal desires and fears come in.
Okay.
You might say something like, I love your sense of style. It's so unique. I always admire people who are confident enough to express themselves authentically.
Okay, that's not creepy at all.
Right.
It's actually a really nice compliment.
Exact.
And by mentioning authenticity, you're kind of subtly aligning yourself with a value that most people aspire to.
Exactly. And from there, you can gently guide the conversation to learn more about them. Ask open-ended questions, listen attentively, and reflect back what you're hearing to demonstrate understanding.
It's a dance where you're both leading and following, creating a space for genuine connection to emerge. But how do you know if the other person is receptive to this kind of interaction? What if they just think you're being weird?
That's where those nonverbal cues become so important. Pay attention to their body language. Are they leaning in, making eye contact, engaging in the conversation?
Right.
Or are they closed off, looking away, giving short, clipped answers?
So it's about being attuned to the signals and respecting their boundaries.
Exactly.
If they're not vibing with it, don't force it.
Exactly. Cold reading at its core is about reading the room, understanding the dynamics of the interaction, and responding in a way that feels authentic and respectful.
This makes me think about another thing that Hutton talks about, this idea of meta-journaling.
So meta-journaling is essentially a practice of self-reflection where you pay attention to your own emotional responses to various situations and then analyze the patterns that emerge. It's becoming a detective of your own inner world.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued by this, but how does that help with cold reading? It seems more like a personal development tool.
The connection lies in developing self-awareness.
Okay.
By understanding your own emotional triggers, biases, and patterns of perception, you become more attuned to those same dynamics in others.
So it's like saying, if I react this way in this situation, maybe other people do too.
Exactly, and that's the foundation of empathy. By understanding your own inner landscape, you can better navigate the emotional terrain of others.
Wow, that's a really profound insight.
Yeah.
It's like saying the key to understanding other people lies in first understanding ourselves.
And that is the essence of both cold reading and insightful human connection. It's about recognizing that we are all mirrors reflecting aspects of each other.
This has been a really mind-bending journey. From smoky rooms and crystal balls to the subtle language of persuasion and the profound depths of self-awareness we've explored so much.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our amazing listeners, we hope this deep dive into the world of cold reading has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to pay closer attention to the subtle ways we communicate and connect with each other. Remember, the power of observation, empathy, and authentic connection is within each of us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds open to the endless possibilities of the human experience.
Thanks for tuning in to Sam's Summaries. If you found this episode useful, let us know with a like, follow, and share. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to visit samfury.com to get free access to all of Sam's original summaries. You can also get any of Sam's books and other exclusive content. It's all completely free at samfury.com.